Hey everybody, welcome to our Stronger Marriage Podcast, holiday version. We know holidays are filled and fraught with tension and stress and potentially conflict, and we want to help. We got a ton of questions in, 12 or 13 questions. We're going to get to all of those in a series of podcasts here. We're releasing the first 4 or 5 questions today. It's going to get spicy, it's going to get fun, and Sharon and I haven't slept for 3 days because of this demonic smoke detector that's been beeping for 5 days. So it should be fun. We're glad you joined us. Here we go. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're totally not ready.
I think so. I know I'm not ready, actually.
Oh, well, welcome to Stronger Marriage Podcast holiday version. I sound really tired.
Holiday edition. Wow, that was droopy.
You ready?
Yes.
You're totally not ready.
Yes.
I'm not ready.
Well,
Hey, full disclosure for this podcast. Last night you had your Noble Women gathering at the well.
Yep.
With like 700 gals. You crushed it. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't know.
hold. You have smoothie in your beard. Let's
I'm
pause.
smoothing my beard? No.
It's down in
That
the
makes for-
corner.
that makes for great TV.
Yeah, it's down
Did I
there.
still get it?
Yep. Someone give
here
him a
we go.
napkin.
Here we
It's
go.
not okay.
How's that?
He's got the gray blend.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
That was gonna be killer. Peanut butter in your beard.
There we go. I feel good. Woo! Okay. Do I look better? Yes. Was it distracting?
It was gonna be brutal to talk with that.
Here you go.
Nope. That's gross.
So what was I was saying last night?
Yes.
You had your Noble Women gathering, 700 women. It was incredible at the well. You crushed it. If you're watching or listening, you should go. Are you guys going to have that up?
Yeah.
Will we have that up?
Eventually. Yeah. It will eventually.
That'll be awesome. Get that up because you crushed it. Talked about in the fight is the theme that you kicked off this fall, and you're in the fight for joy. It was
Yes.
really good, babe. I was sitting back there. I was like, where does she have time to do this? So you did a great job.
Thank
but
you.
morning after, we're both kind of foggy. And the reason we're foggy is because right above us here in our home, we're in our home studio, is a smoke detector
Yes.
that has been beeping like a demon smoke detector for 5 nights, and we couldn't figure it out.
Only at night.
But only at night.
It wouldn't beep during the day.
know.
It's like it knew when the sun went down and we were trying to go to sleep.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they're in bed. Let's
Yes.
light them up.
Chirp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it just chirped all night long. So the first 2 nights we thought we'll sleep through it. Didn't sleep through it.
Right.
Next night we wrapped a towel around it. The third night we wrapped, fourth night, towel and we duct taped
and a pillow.
over our ceiling.
And just full disclosure, we did change the batteries, y'all. I did try and troubleshoot. Like, it's not like we just sat and looked at it and
Yeah,
tried
but we're
to.
on like a 12-foot ladder
I know.
and at like 3 in the morning,
hardwired.
like trying to stay awake.
It's a
It's
thing.
hardwired.
It was
we
a
hung
thing.
blankets over our door to try to like stop the noise. And then the guy today was like, he's like, well,
Sorry.
you could have unplugged it. And I'm like, totally. We could have unplugged it. Wow. So 5 nights and no sleep. And
Yeah.
here we are. But cool story. The guy that came and fixed it for us just
Yeah.
moved here from Arizona. He and his wife.
Yes.
To be part of Grace City Church and put their boy in Garden City Academy. Super cool dude.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
Yeah. He's like, I want to be in a community of men that want to raise stronger boys to
Mm-hmm.
be stronger men. And I was in a great church where we were at, but that wasn't a big priority.
Yeah,
And he's
didn't have
like,
a vision for it.
It has to be a priority for me and my family. So
Yeah.
like came up here for Strong Men Conference as a gift to his boy for a rite of passage. Was like, this is amazing. Went back. His son's like, Dad, I could live there. Talked to his wife. They put their house on the market. And then he's like, I figured my wife should at least see the town we're moving to. So
Yeah.
they flew up. She's totally game.
Yep.
Totally game. So super fun to meet a random guy in our home this morning who
Yep.
fixed our smoke alarm.
Bless him.
And moved up here to be a part of Stronger Man Nation. Super cool. So anyways, I'm just trying to avoid getting to these questions.
Okay.
No, in all honesty,
man.
so we got a ton of questions. Our team got a ton of questions for marriage, family, and holiday stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I have not looked through these.
Okay.
So I haven't read them. You haven't read them.
Nope.
This is total cold turkey.
Okay.
So we're missing Mom, who's like our secret weapon
Oh,
here.
I'd be punting a lot of questions to her, I think.
Yeah, she's in London right now,
Yes, she
getting ready to go
is.
to Les Mis with
Yes,
her
she
sisters.
is.
So if we totally bomb, we can have her back next
I
week,
think so.
and she can clean up the mess. But we'll see how far we get. And my iPad is 8% power, so
Okay. So it might die, and then you just be
yeah, so-
making questions up
so
on the
Lord
fly.
willing, it'll die here in 5 minutes, and we'll have to quit.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
let's jump in here.
Okay, ready.
Our team entitled these series of questions: eggnog, egalitarian ants, and healthy boundaries.
Oh, wow.
Take those
Oh,
shots.
man.
Okay, so these are questions about marriage, family, holidays, boundaries. We're going to take them cold turkey one at a time.
Okay.
If we don't like them, we can just move on to the next question.
Okay.
If it's a dumb question, hey, you're on your own.
Okay. Oh, dear me.
Okay, number one. Here we go. We are a newly married couple.
Congrats.
And both of us come from broken families. How can we plan our first holiday season together to establish healthy patterns? That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a proactive question.
Yep.
So as a pastor, most of the questions, 80% of the questions I deal with are reactive questions. Oh, we screwed our life up. We've made a series of foolish decisions. We ignored wise counsel. Now what do we do? It's like, well, dummy, but this question is awesome because it's being proactive. So well done, whoever's out there asking this question. Great job. And even the having the sense to ask this question is like, got a lot of hope here. You're going to get on a good path. Newly married couple, both come from broken homes. How can we plan our first holiday season together to establish healthy patterns? You want to say anything?
Well, first of all, great instinct to be planning your own new traditions because you are your own entity.
Yes.
Like just because you came from broken homes doesn't mean that a new generation and legacy can start with you, which is obviously it can start with you.
Yes.
However I said that.
Yes.
So that's awesome. And
Spoke last night to 700 women.
Blah, blah, blah.
Just got up an hour ago.
So that's awesome that's what they're already thinking. The
Yes.
mindset they already have. We came from these families, but this isn't going to be our reality. This isn't what we want to be about.
Yep.
So for them, they probably already started with hopefully some good boundaries of, hey, this is where we're headed, being able to tell their families, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to go about things.
Yep.
So there's probably going to be surrounding lots of things in life, from kids potentially coming up to how much time is spent at their home. Holidays is just another one of those things where this husband and wife, this brand new couple, has to decide, okay, how much time do we want to be spending with these quote unquote dysfunctional families? What is that going to look like? What's going to be healthy for us?
Yeah.
So it's got to start with them and their agreements,
Yeah.
right? They got to sit down and talk about their plan. Like, what can we agree on? I think we should consider going and seeing this side of the family.
Yeah.
And let's go for 3 hours. Let's go for a half of a day. Like that kind of, I think, specificity for them to come to agreement on. So they know they're both going to go and dress it. Or it's, you know what? We're going to take a couple years to establish our own tradition. So we won't be with you for Thanksgiving. And as long as the two of them are on the same page and have decided what they're going to do together and lovingly communicate to the families, it's like, that's your next steps. Figure out what you're going to be about. Figure out what traditions you're going to have, and then lovingly communicate it to your families. Yeah. Just really basic good start,
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is, you don't have kids yet,
right?
And so that's a complicating factor that we'll add in later.
Makes more.
And so you should establish healthy patterns now before you have those additional complications added in. And hey, be honest, you're more flexible. It's the two of you guys. You don't have any kids, so you can be gracious and kind and kind of work with the family. But I think the key is what you said: having agreements together, what you're going to do, and then communicating those in a loving way. And quite honestly, the husband should take the initiative in that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you've talked with your family, I talk with mine just because that's easier, But by and large, if it's going to be contentious, the husband should take the lead in that.
Agreed.
So as not to put the wife in that hard position. And if it's not going to be contentious, then whatever, you guys can do whatever works best. But knowing what you want to do. Like, I've talked with some young couples and they're like, I don't know how to say this, but they're just like, they're over the top. You know what I mean? Like dad, mom, like never call us. And you're like, your mom's not that bad. She's very nice, And so like, I guess the other side of it is like, oh, our family's dysfunctional. It's like, well, maybe you're just a jerk, And so I want to be careful though that like not every family gets labeled dysfunctional, that maybe doesn't do things the way you want to do them. You know what I mean? But having said that, if there is legitimate, unhealth, toxicity, which I kind of don't really like that word anymore, but dysfunction, relational unhealth, or just flat out sin, then the husband and wife need to build an agreement, build clear boundaries, and then be consistent with those. And you don't got to be a jerk about them. What I mean? Hey, this is what we're thinking about doing this year. We'd be available on this day to do something if that works for the family. If not, totally get it. So you're still making it available, but it's on your terms.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest idea is you just want to protect your new marriage, your new household. And if you can be with those families and it not affect your household, then great, do that. The other thing I would add and might get into other questions we get later, but I think there is a dynamic. We should move on. We're spending too long on this question. I think there is a dynamic that's interesting between whether or not your family are believers or unbelievers. Like that would play into it for me. Like if we had dysfunctional family that weren't believers, I'd be more apt to try to figure out a way to be around them. To be able to be a witness, not letting their stuff get on us, and not compromising any values that we have. But I'd be more motivated. But there's a unique dysfunction to Christian dysfunction, where it's like we claim to follow Jesus, we claim to believe the Bible, we claim to be a part of the church, and we refuse to grow, humble ourselves, remain stubborn, and are demonstrating all sorts of relational dysfunction in our interactions. That's a unique kind of brokenness that I'm more apt to be like, I don't want to be around that. You know what I mean? Like kind of like just broken pagan lostness. Man, we can go there.
Step into that
and be light. You know what I mean? I mean, be wise and like, oh yeah, pedophile, drunk uncle. No. Off the reservation. But if it's just the run-of-the-mill pedestrian lost folks, man, you want to move to that, But if it's like, oh yeah, we go to church and we claim Jesus and we're passive-aggressive and we're all these horrible things, it's like, yeah, no, you know better, and we're gonna back away from that. I think you even see that in the writings of Paul. It's like we're not called to judge those outside the world. We are called to judge those inside the church. So it's interesting. We are way off the track now, but
it's good.
But it's Tuesday morning. We're both wiped and haven't slept for 5 days because it's stupid smoke alarm up there. When I heard one guy say recently, he's like, "Well, my son, my son just feels judged by other kids in youth group." Well, that's because your son's an idiot. That's because your son is stubborn and rebellious and running with the wrong crowd and being ungodly. And so the godly young men around him are like, "Bro, what are you doing?" And he plays the whole "I'm feeling judged" card. Well, yeah, you are being judged because Paul says we are to judge those inside the church. Like, hey, you claim to follow Jesus, but you're not following Jesus. So that's confusing. If you're not going to follow Jesus, that's cool. Just stop saying you're following Jesus. But to claim you're following Jesus or you're a Christian and then to live in a distinctly unchristian way, it requires judgment from the church. So, this dad's like, well, my son's feeling judged by the church. Like, well, he should feel judged by a church because he's a fool. And so like there's a verse in the Bible. Paul says, we don't judge those outside the church. Are we not to judge those inside the church? It's a rhetorical question. Yes, we are. And so it's interesting to think about, if you have unbelievers, man, find a way to circle up the family, pray over them, pray with them, your family, pray over your lost family, and then move toward them in ways that you can, or bring them into your home.
Which I was just going to say that if there's a way for you to facilitate something where you could host, even if it's your little apartment or your spot, like you get to set culture then a little bit. I mean, just showing them something that's different, I think is something to consider. You'd have to agree on that and how you'd want to do it. But I can imagine that being super effective of just... we're going to have you to our house and we're going to pray at dinner and we're going to do this or whatever. And there'd just be some pieces that you could live out and in front of your family in a certain way.
Invite them into the beauty of a home submitted to Jesus. Invite them into the beauty of a home that's under the reign and experiencing the peace of the Messiah. So we are really kind of wandering around here, and I'm sure there's more questions to get to, but I'm hoping my iPad runs out of juice here.
Stop.
But it is interesting to think about, because I was just talking to a guy with this week, and it's like he's got lost family members, and so it's like, man, you want to move toward them. But those people who claim to be followers of Jesus but are toxic, mean-spirited, critical, refuse to respect boundaries, pushy, passive-aggressive, that stuff, no time for that. That's back away. Now again, I'm not saying we have unbelieving family members and they're dangerous. Okay. Obviously draw the lines there. But if they're just lost, man, I love the idea of moving toward them. And then as you have kids, here's the thing. It's not that you're trying to shelter your kids in a way that's, well, now we're all over the map. I absolutely believe in sheltering your kids. Let's just say that, because you want to normalize a kingdom ethos in their life. So when they bump up against the kingdom of darkness, it's not attractive to them, it's abrasive. It's like, this is off, this is wrong. But man, when we've taken our kids into scenarios where there's unbelievers there, it's an incredible learning experience. Okay, kids, what was that like? How are we doing? Well, it was weird. It was different. It was off. Why is that? And we have a great conversation. So if you're there overseeing it, discipling your kids, maybe setting boundaries and articulating what is allowed, what's not allowed, man, those environments can be really beneficial in discipling your children. So I'm not saying to avoid all those environments, but set clear parameters and boundaries and make sure that you're the one controlling what happens there.
Yeah.
I don't think we answered that question at all. This poor young family listening to us is like, that was so confusing. If you're a young family, have dysfunctional family on both sides, build agreements, like Sharon said.
That's right.
Get clarity on it, lovingly communicate to your family, and then they'll prove their dysfunction or lack of it by how they respond.
Exactly.
If they're like, that's awesome, we're so good, we're so proud of you guys, you're like, oh, maybe what we thought was there isn't there. And then you can open up some space to them. If they're like, how dare you, unity, we always, and you're like, see, you're proving my point here. Because here's the thing about dysfunctional families. Dysfunctional families put a lot of weight on holidays.
Pressure.
Right? Because you're probably not together a lot during the year because no one wants to be together. So that just increases like the, what should I say?
Expectation factor.
The expectations of the holidays. Like, I would say, by God's grace, we have a relatively non-dysfunctional family. You know what I mean? Mom, but
She's not here to defend
I don't know
herself.
if she's listening. No, but relatively.
Yes.
And so having said that, like, we love the holidays, but like Carrie and Tara were gone this year for Thanksgiving, whatever.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. Who
We
cares?
miss them, but it's fine.
Yeah, because like we love each other. We're in a relationship all year round, and we're not hanging all these expectations on like, if we don't have Christmas breakfast together, like it's all going to be ruined. So there's just the dysfunctional family places a lot of expectations on the holidays because that's like their one shot to quote unquote pretend we're a family. The healthy family has very little expectations for the holidays, but a lot of anticipation for the holidays because they're going to be fun.
Yeah.
And that might be a great way to measure where you're at. If we have expectations that we're either putting on family members or we're feeling that being put on us, that might be a yellow flag for dysfunction. If there's high anticipation for the holidays with low expectations, that's the sign of a very healthy family.
That's good. That's real good.
Yeah. Okay. We should just end there. Can
That
we
was
end there,
awesome.
please, guys? Okay. Question 2.
Okay.
My family is highly dysfunctional. As a follower of Jesus, should I attend holiday functions with family members who openly affirm sinful behaviors? Well, we just talked about this a little bit. My quick thought would be if they're actively participating in sinful behaviors, well, that's a huge category. Like sinful behaviors like they gossip, sinful behaviors like they drink to drunkenness, sinful behaviors like they're crass, or they're sexual deviance or sexual. It's like, there's varying degrees of simple behavior that would determine whether or not I want my family around it. And so if it's just kind of general run of the mill sinful behaviors, it's like, okay, we could deal with that for an hour or two. But if it's like they make me nervous and I don't want to leave my kids alone with them, that's a different topic altogether. And so
I think it might depend on the age of your kids too.
Oh, that's good.
I think in some ways there'd be conversations to be had with like 10, 11, 12 and older.
Yeah.
Like you can be in settings and it's amazing how much your kids pick up on dysfunction of others, especially if you're being discipled in your home. I mean, we've had conversations with, like you just said before, we've had conversations with our kids. We've come out of something or we've been somewhere and they'll be like, what was up with so-and-so?
Yeah.
Like that seemed odd or that seemed off. And so I think there is good discipling and teaching that can happen when your children are of a certain age.
Yep.
I think I'd just be really hesitant as a mama with my kids, potentially if they're young, little, very impressionable. I mean, how much do you want your heartstrings of your child tied to this uncle or to this grandparent or to this family member? The more time they spend with them, especially from littles on, the more they see this person as the fun whatever, and they can become attached to that person. And then someday when you're like, actually, we're not going to hang out with these people or this uncle or that person. Poor uncles. I feel like uncles are getting thrown under the bus here. Crazy whatever.
We have great uncles, by
the
way.
Yeah. So it's like, or whoever that family member may be, if you've been consistently spending time with them intentionally, and your little kids have been able to have free access to them, or especially alone time or whatever it is, that's going to be challenging, I think, as your children get older.
It's a question of influence.
Yeah, agreed.
We worked a lot of families where it's like when our kids are young and they're impressionable and easily influenced, grandpa or grandma or whoever it is like buying them stuff and candy and games and video games and crossing boundaries that we had asked them to respect that they didn't, which makes us nervous, rightfully so.
Right.
And it's like they're trying to win influence in the hearts of these kids, and we don't want them influencing them because of their own unhealth. And so what you're pointing to is smaller children are more impressionable and vulnerable to being influenced. Older children you can talk with. And so we've had a lot of conversations with our kids about these kinds of things, and we have guarded them from different influences in their life. And now that they're older, they see it for themselves.
Correct.
They're like, oh, this makes sense now.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really good point to make. I had one more thought I was going to add, but I lost
I just
it
think
here.
that would impact how this family would decide, what kind of sin is happening in this family that they're wanting to go spend time with, and then age of your kids and what that looks like. That would be a big part of the discussion, I think.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Let's keep
You
going.
might think of it again too.
Yeah, I lost my thought here. So, and then I think Sean talked to some of these people who asked these questions. So if there's anything that you heard from those guys, you could add
There you
here as we go. I feel like I'm talking to Snurdly. Remember
Snurdly, yes.
Rush Limbaugh. You guys remember Snurdly?
Rush's guy.
Rush Limbaugh. Yeah. Snurdly.
Except his name's Sean.
So Sean.
Different nickname.
Yeah. Let's give Sean a
Not call
nickname.
him Snurdly. Yeah.
Pound on the table behind the golden EIB microphone.
Oh my goodness.
What a legend.
Indeed.
Three.
Okay.
No, question number 3.
Okay.
We have like 11 or 12 of these. We'll get through 4 or 5. How about
Okay.
that?
Sounds good.
A couple more. Hey, everyone. Hope you're enjoying this podcast on Christmas, holidays, and dysfunctional families. A quick little plug here for a resource that Sharon and I are mentioning in this podcast called Fruitful Marriage. You can get it on Amazon or go to strongommannation.com. We'd love to get that to you. It's a resource that my wife and I wrote on how to essentially do a vision retreat, how we've done it for 20 years now, get away, what are agreements, how to build them, what that gives you, and then the oneness that it produces. If that would help you in your marriage, we'd love to get that to you. Amazon, Fruitful Marriage, Josh and Sharon McPherson, or strongommannation.com. Hope it helps. My wife and I are trying. I don't know why I said looking.
Okay.
I'm tired. My wife and I are trying to learn how to set healthy boundaries should we attend a holiday gathering with family members who refuse to acknowledge or repent of past sins and pretend like nothing ever happened. Yeah, wow.
Okay,
Well,
read it one more time.
my wife and I are trying to learn how to set healthy boundaries should we attend a holiday gathering with family members who refuse to acknowledge or repent of past sins and pretend like nothing ever happened. I'm not good at answering these questions, I feel like, because I want to ask more questions.
Right. Well, that's usually the case.
It's
Just
like,
wanna know more.
so my next question would be, well, what did they refuse to repent of? And when you say past sins and pretend like nothing ever happening, what does that mean? Well, this one time we asked them to bring chicken and they didn't, and they never admitted that they forgot to, and it ruined the whole barbecue.
Yeah.
And they just disrespected me, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I think we can let that one go. Or maybe you need to let that one, you're the problem. Or maybe it's like, well, one time they said some things about me that weren't true. And that hurt me. It's like, okay, that's legitimate, and I think we worked through that. If it's like, well, my uncle sexually abused me.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Or my dad hit me. No, absolutely not. Or my mom viciously attacked my wife. And now my wife feels unsafe around her, or my wife feels like about 3 inches tall around her. No, it's like your job, dude, is to make sure your wife feels loved and protected, especially from your mom. And if your mom has regularly made your wife feel demeaned or belittled or berated or just regularly violating boundaries, like on our last podcast, my mom, I hadn't thought this, but like my mom's never given you a gift
Right.
that was like passively aggressively saying you should be more like this.
Yeah.
She's always asking, how do you want to decorate your home? Would you
Yeah.
like this? And so she just honors those female territorial boundaries
Yeah.
that are natural and good and right and should not be violated. So if your mom's regularly doing that, I'm talking to the dude, with your wife, and she regularly feels disrespected, dishonored, belittled, violated, then you need to have a conversation with your mom. Maybe she wasn't realizing it. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Can I tell her I'm sorry? Yeah. Oh, Mom, thanks. I appreciate that. But if your mom's like, I don't do that, what's her problem? Then you're like, well, Mom, I love you, but I love my wife more. And we're not going to be around you regularly if you continue making her feel like this. Can you see that, understand that, or would you be willing to change? And if she's like, screw you, then that just made your decision.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep taking your wife into an environment where she feels belittled and violated and think that your relationship with her is going to be strong for very long. Because now you're violating her trust because you're refusing to protect her from an environment that hurts her.
Yeah.
And then, man, I have all these situations in my head as I talk. And the flip side, if your wife is easily offended and wrongly and takes up hurts that she shouldn't, you need to disciple her through that. Babe, that's not what my mom said. My mom didn't mean to do that. You are, I guess I'm like, I can be very strong against legitimate abuses and dysfunction. And then we also meet with people who are so soft and so fragile and so easily offended that Jesus would say something to offend them at Christmas, and then they would label him dysfunctional and set up boundaries between them. And it's like, come on. And so I want to guard against that. And sometimes a woman needs to get a little thicker skin and needs to not take such easily offense. And the husband needs to disciple her because, babe, that's not what my mom intended. That's not what she said, nor what she did. And we can have a conversation if you'd like. And so it's up to the husband, I think, to navigate whether or not his mom is being unreasonable and unhealthy or his wife is maybe a little too fragile. And even having said that, the husband should always defer to the needs of the wife, not bow or bend to like emotional sabotage, as my friend Joe Rigney would say, but to like if the wife is being loved and discipled and grown, then he needs to make sure he's deferring her. And so I'm not promoting or advocating a husband to tell wife to buck up and get thicker skin and mom's great.
Correct.
No. Err on the side of protecting, loving your wife, and make sure that you're not like being controlled and steered by a wife who's just emotionally manipulating the situation. And when she doesn't like something, all of a sudden she just labels it dysfunctional and toxic and expects you to protect her from it. Yeah. When in reality, she needs to be discipled into greater health herself. Is this making sense?
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say,
every time I say something, I feel like I got to caveat it because I don't know the situation particularly, and I don't want to give license to.
That's why there's so many questions about this, because this is like landmine after landmine. Yeah. With family relationships and the holidays, and then dysfunction, and it always feels like, this is when stuff crops up more. Yeah,
so we're in a podcast, which means there's limited value to it because we're giving general wisdom that might get used and applied in a specific situation in a wrong way. And then they'd say, well, Pastor Josh said this. It's like, well, not exactly. Yeah. He said we should go. And it's like, well, you didn't tell me your mom wasn't chainsaw massacre murderer. You know, it's like that would have changed the equation of what I would have said.
Right. Well, I was thinking too a little bit on this question. I mean, I think the first thing you would do is have you as a couple decided we need to talk to them about this? Or are you continuing to go saying, I wish they'd apologize for this thing? They might not even know that they did something. I mean, maybe they do, but like consider, have you already gone to your parents or this family member that's hurt you deeply? Yes. Have you brought it to them and said, hey, just, could we have a conversation? This was harmful, hurtful. We want to work for reconciliation. Yes. And if they're unwilling then to come forward to move towards reconciliation, if you've gone through, you've
been
talked
Christian.
It through, you've been a Christian, mature. You've looked in your heart, you've been like, we need to repent of this, or you know what, we're good, we're clean slate here, but we need to go to them. Right. So I think just be wary of being like, well, they hurt us, so we're not going to go. Well, have you talked to them? Yeah, totally. I mean, just like now, we're assuming, lots of caveats here.
We're assuming that the person who's saying their family's dysfunctional, that they're functional.
Yes.
But they could be the dysfunctional ones, and their family's the functional ones. No. And now they're late. It's like, okay, wrong recipe. So we're assuming maturity, wisdom, godliness. They work through things.
An attempt to reconcile. Yes. Whether that's, if they're a long distance, that's a phone call, that's a letter, that's some sort of like extending peace from a Christian person to somebody else.
We worked with a young couple in time, and they were like, my mom did this, and this is where we got it. Yeah, because like what I do not want is people who follow us, who are part of Strongman Nation, or whatever, to like all of a sudden just be like cutting families members off left and right. Yes. It's like, hey, come on now. So we worked with a young couple, and they were like, my mom I forget what it was.
Yeah.
You know, she sent us the dates for Thanksgiving, and like it just felt like a lot of pressure, and she didn't ask us. And so here's this 10-page letter we wrote her. You know what I mean? And just like lighting her up.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Bro, calm down.
Yeah.
First of all, your mom is very sweet,
Yeah.
and very godly, and she's just trying to organize some things here.
Yeah.
And the husband has gone a lot. She's trying to carry a heavy load, you know, whatever." And so I was like, this is a misunderstanding that you're responding with like a 10-page litigation.
Yeah.
It's like, my gosh, just call her and be like, "Hey mom, we probably can't make that date. We can make this date. Would that work?" And she'll probably be like, "Oh, my bad." So this kid he's calling his mom, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Your dad was like, hey, throw dates out for the kids. We want to make sure they're doing their own thing." And his mom had acted trying to actually help them facilitate their own holidays. And they like got all butthurt about it, and we're about ready to like light her up and start some like, you know, nuclear war.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that's immature.
Yeah.
You're 23. And so love the instinct to protect your family, but be reasonable and be godly.
Yes.
And so
communicate.
Communicate.
I'm assuming that they have
Is this
already.
making sense?
I'm
I feel like
assuming
we're all
they've
on the map
already
here.
done that.
Yeah.
But like, don't be a Hallmark
I was
movie.
asking-
Like, don't be a Hallmark movie. Like
Ooh.
every Hallmark movie
Yeah.
happens because they
should-
didn't communicate.
Yeah, tell us.
It's. Well, I don't even know what to say. Everybody's seen a Hallmark movie, or
Well, no, we watch Hallmark with our kids.
Yeah.
And we're like,
and our kids are like yelling at the screen. Just talk to her. I mean, like it's so funny.
We're like pausing the movie like, "Kids, what would have solved this? A simple phone call." But the
like-
funny thing is, you're watching, you're like, but the movie wouldn't have any plot. It would only be 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If they didn't miscommunicate.
Yeah.
Like literally the foundation to every Hallmark tension plot
Christmas
is
movie.
they don't communicate.
Yes.
And so without
that should not be life, though.
No, but here's the funny thing.
Yeah.
It makes for a great Hallmark movie because without it, it'd be 5 minutes. And so
Yeah.
they need 90 minutes to get a movie. And then, as a pastor for the last 25 years, I've sat across the desk from thousands of couples, and I'm like, "You're a Hallmark movie."
Yes.
Like, Hallmark movie, art imitates life. Like, they're not making this crap up.
No, I
like,
know.
people don't talk. They
Yeah.
don't communicate. A simple phone call, right? So when you write a letter, that's taking things way up. Even text can be misconstrued. Pick up the phone, make a phone call.
Yeah.
Communicate. Make sure that you're clear on if you even have disagreements or not.
That's right.
Or if there is even any unhealth in a situation, it might just be a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So,
Start there. Don't assume.
yeah.
Believe the best. And
Assumptions are relational landmines.
absolutely.
As soon as I assume something about you or assume something about us, but haven't clarified it with good communication, I have just stepped on a landmine, and it's waiting to go off and maim me or our relationship. And so
it always will.
always
Assumptions
will.
always do.
That's right. And so we've just had a rule in our family, like no assumptions.
Yeah.
Like, because how many arguments or fights have started with like, "Well, I just thought,
I just assumed that.
I just assumed." Like,
Yeah.
why would you think that? You know what I mean? And so you cut that off by refusing to. That's part of believing. It's the backside of believing the best. If you don't believe the best, you make faulty assumptions and you believe the worst. Believe the best and then confirm and get clarity with good communication.
Yeah, that's good.
Really good, babe. Okay. Let's do one more.
Okay.
Number 4.
Okay.
We are hosting family for Christmas. Ooh. Should we allow family members who openly mock our faith to attend our holiday gatherings?
Do they want to come?
I don't know. I didn't write the question.
I'm like, if they want to come, then I think you're just like, hey, we want you to come. Like if in the past they've been like, you know, Jesus is terrible and Christmas is stupid, and then you're like, hey, we're gonna have this Christmas thing, and they're
Has
like,
anyone ever said that?
no, I don't know. I'm just if they mock what you do or whatever,
Right.
are they aggressively mocking you, like verbally, and they're gonna come and just be like chirping at you the entire time?
Yeah.
Okay, well, think about that. But if they want to come, it's like, hey, we're going to do this, and just be open and communicate with them about what you're going to do. We're going to pray. We're going to talk about Jesus. We're actually going to read from Luke 2, the
Right.
Christmas story together. And if you can be here and be a part of that and take it in, we'd love to have you be here. I
Right.
don't know. That's where I'd start. I'd be like, just communicate, say what you're going to do. If they want
Yeah.
to come, great, have them come.
Yeah.
You never know what might land on them. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one, though. I feel like there's more questions to ask. There's more.
No. I'm thinking in my head of a scenario that happened in our family. And I was just wondering if I should share it or not. I wasn't meaning to not pay attention.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
You looked like you were thinking deep in
Yes.
thought.
Yes.
Yes. No. Yeah. It's
Like for instance, I'll tell the story.
Okay.
We had a very distant,
yes.
very very distant family member
Mm-hmm.
who like attacked me
Yes.
That's a strong word. It was just like, you're an idiot. What you do is dumb.
Yeah.
God isn't real. Like, I can't believe how much money time you spent chasing this thing.
Yes.
And leading so many people astray. And kind of just did that with, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I love this person
Yes.
deeply.
Yes.
I love this person deeply. But we don't get to see them that often because we don't live close to them. And for the holidays, we were having this conversation. Should I get invited? And just full transparency, my dad was like, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? They're not going to step foot on this property. They attacked Josh, blah, blah. And he went into like defense mode, you know?
He did. It was hilarious.
And loved my dad. It was great. And my mom was like, honey, they don't know Jesus. This is exactly where they should be. And he was like, oh.
Which he knows that.
You're right. Yeah. and so for me, I'm again, there's lots of caveats here, but in general, if someone doesn't love Jesus and they're hostile to your faith, man, I'd love to have them over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like continue to prove them wrong by how we love them. Like it's not the end of the world if you get mocked for your faith.
Yeah.
You know, you're not getting crucified here. You're not getting beat and whipped in the public square. You're not getting thrown to the lion's den. You're identifying with the sufferings of Jesus, and that's cool. Now, if it's getting on your kids, you know, if it's disrupting your home, I protect that, right? But if you're aligned and unified with your wife and your kids, and you're going to have, you know, that person over, I'd go for it.
How is that any different than like what we're called to do in like city group life?
Yeah,
we've had people in our home that have absolutely been against what we stand for. And
oh
we
my
know
gosh.
it
Well, yeah.
and would speak against it. And they've still come with a spouse who happened to invite them and sit in our living room.
Yeah.
And then we get to just love on them.
Yeah.
And it's amazing once they get in the environment and get there, you're like, you just going to, it's exciting. I mean, that kind of makes me like, hey, invite them, get them there, like love them, coals upon their head.
Yeah.
I mean, just.
It's fun to have some and smile, love them.
Yeah. And that takes the grace of the Lord in you to be able to do that. Like for your own flesh not to rise up. Like they say something when they're in your house. Like, how do you respond to that? Well, I mean, like have a plan going into it. If they start talking like this, what am I going to say in response? How am I going to love them well?
If they're like dirty, like we've had scenarios where like, hey man, we'd love to have you come, but you know, when you're just dropping constant F-bombs and talking about inappropriate things that you like to do with ladies in front of our kid, it doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
If you can,
back to the communication
if you
piece.
can put a cap on that, man, we'd love to have you. But does that make sense? You know, can you kind of understand that? And some have been like, oh, totally, my bad. And then we know other people who are like, we have people who are just like, how can you say that in front of kids?
Yeah.
And they don't even right over their head.
No filter, yeah.
And so when our kids were younger, that's a big deal. The older our kids have gotten, I don't say it's entertaining because you're entertained
like
by
that's
sin.
not quite the right word.
But like they'll be there like dropping F-bombs and our kids are like, they're like, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Cute's the wrong word. But so I think it's a case-by-case deal. If you have someone who's aggressively mean-spirited and potentially dangerous, that's a no. But if they just don't share your faith and take pot shots every once in a while, well, what do you expect?
Yeah.
Invite them, like be intentional about pursuing them. Invite them in, and then kill them with kindness, man. Win them with the love of Jesus. And we've had those people in our homes in city groups. Some have been changed by it. Like, I thought you were this, but you were really this. And why were you so nice to me? I've been so mean to you. Bro, that's I was mean to Jesus, and he still loved me enough to die for me. The least I could do is like give you some Ritz
Arnold
crackers
Palmer.
Ritz crackers and salami and cheese dip for Christmas. And then other people have come into our home and then left and lied and slandered and smeared our name publicly online for years.
Yeah.
And then used the fact they were in our home to speak as though they were authoritative when they've totally lied about us. You're like, well, that's a risk you take.
Yeah.
And just because people burn you doesn't mean you stop loving people.
Oh no.
And so that's a part of living in a broken world.
That's what he did.
I mean, I want to be clear. Like we want to live healthy lives, set healthy boundaries so we can live godly lives. And we're in a world of brokenness, and it's not going to be perfect. And you can't wall yourself off from a broken world. That's why Jesus didn't like come into the world and set boundaries with everybody. He came in the world to love the world and die for the world ultimately. And so I'm not saying Jesus isn't for boundaries.
Pretty sure he was.
Jesus sent a lot of boundaries. Like, you know, he's talked to some and he didn't talk to others. So all that is look at our body of work when,
Yes.
when you take this counsel.
Yes.
But I think we balance healthy. I have like 8 things to say, and I keep interrupting a thought to say another thought. So I realize
That's
I've
why
said
I'm just being quiet to
no
let you
complete thought here
get through all of
for
them.
a while. Sorry. These guys are like, we can never clip this. Oh, well, sorry. Like if you are weak and unhealthy and trying to push things together as a family, more boundaries.
Yeah.
The healthier you are, the stronger you are, the less boundaries you need because you can handle what you're going into. Now that's not to say that you still don't set up boundaries just to enjoy life. Like we have wonderful holidays because we've established boundaries for a long time early on. And so it's just like, if we have family members we want to reach for Jesus, I don't view the holidays as a time to do that. Let's do it the rest of the year. You know what I mean? But like, and this may be selfish, but like, I want to enjoy my Thanksgiving and I want to enjoy my Christmas. And I'm not going to blow up either one of those to put up with the consistent, foolish behavior of other people. And so we'll have them into our home other times of the year and reach out to them. But Thanksgiving and Christmas, this is probably super what's what I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Not contradictive. Oh, I'm so tired. It's probably super controversial. That's what I'm trying to say. And ungodly. And what a terrible Christian. That's just how I think of things. Like our life, we're out in the fray 24/7, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving and Christmas, we lock it down.
You lock it down.
yeah, dude.
But hey, here's the deal.
We'll be on mission 350 days a year.
but here's the deal. That's actually something we've agreed upon.
Yeah.
And for some other families, that's not going to be their MO, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's good and fine. I mean, I was thinking, you probably still have 7 more thoughts that you want to say.
I don't know.
But I was just thinking in
The
general.
biggest thought is I want to
With
go
all
get in a hot tub.
of these questions that we've had today, it's amazing how stuff really crops up and really ramps up at the holidays,
Yes.
which is why it's so essential
That's right.
in your marriage that you are working on these things not in wartime.
That's right.
Like that's why you're going through our Stronger Marriage material. That's why you're taking consistent we retreats. That's why you're working on your agreements ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that all of a sudden November doesn't show up and you're like, babe, what are we going to do? The amount of stress it increases at the holidays. It's like, oh my goodness. If you're that brand new married couple at the beginning, the question, what a sweet time you have.
Yes.
Start now making agreements and have some vision for long term. What do
Yep.
we want our holidays to be like in 10 years?
Yep.
What do we want our holidays to be like in 20 years? What do
Yep.
we want it to be like when we have 5 kids or
Yep.
when we whatever? Like, how are we going to navigate that? Okay, let's reverse engineer
Yeah.
and start now and not wait
Yeah.
to practice healthy agreements and healthy boundaries and figuring out what we want as a family culture. So it's like, don't wait till the holidays to make these decisions, I guess is what I'm encouraging.
That's
Which I
good.
love that people are asking questions. It's so good.
Yep.
But like when it's peacetime,
Yeah.
oh man, talk about the holidays. Like
Yep.
that should be a part of your we retreat, in-laws and holidays, and figure out what you're going to do.
That's
so
good.
you're not caught off guard. Because guess what? Some family members are going to ask you in April what you're doing for Christmas. And you guys should have a plan.
Yeah.
And be able to talk about it. And
That's
maybe
really
your
good.
plan is, actually, we're not going to commit to anything until November because of our work schedules or whatever it might be. And that's okay too, as long as you figure out
Yeah.
what you're going to do. So I would just encourage, I realize we're now in quote unquote wartime. Why I call the holidays wartime, but they can be for couples
crunch time.
and marriages. It's crunch time.
Yeah,
So it's
calendar
like,
crunch
I
time.
realize we're in that. So some people are like, yeah, we got caught off guard again.
Yep.
It's like, guess what? If it doesn't work this year, don't wait till next November to make a plan.
Yeah.
Go on a we retreat in January and
Yep.
sit down and be like, babe, let's talk about this.
And the
Because,
retreat
you
you're
know,
talking about is our fruitful marriage
Yeah.
content. I think you get it on Amazon. Maybe the guys will put a link
Yeah.
in the
Stronger
in the
Marriage
bio
books.
here.
There's a wife's book and a husband's book
Yep.
for you to walk through all these things together. And one of the big things, obviously, is how to make agreements, especially if you're listening, you're like, agreements, what are they even talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
we talk about all of it
about
there.
agreements.
You can
We
watch
teach
the
you how
videos.
we teach you how to build them. It
Yeah.
comes with curriculum and videos.
Man, they're just life-changing.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing we can end with here, we have like 9 more questions. We'll get to them maybe in the
Okay.
next podcast.
Sounds good.
You got to be on the same page. If you and your wife are on the same page, man, you can weather a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think less from this podcast says, here's the recipe, do this. The bigger emphasis is get on the same page, pray over it, seek the Lord, listen to this podcast, go find some people that you love and respect who have a family like you want to have and go, hey, can we take you to lunch? We're buying. We'll take 1 hour. We have a couple set of questions. So be a good learner, learn from other people, take them out to lunch and go, here's our 3 questions. You know our family, or here's our family scenario. and get some specific counsel based on your situation.
Yeah.
And then you and your wife, at the end of the day, wise counsel aside, have to sit down and make an agreement. And that's where the power is. If you and your wife have an agreement about, and it's intentional and thought through and biblical and been checked by wise counsel, man, you can weather a lot.
Yeah.
You can go into crazy situations, or you can even invite crazy situations into your home.
Yes.
And do just fine if you're on the same page. Where we see 98% of the car wrecks is when the husband and wife aren't on the same page.
Yes.
Or worse, the husband makes a decision without including the wife or involving the wife. Yeah. Bro, oh, come on, dude.
Yeah.
That's just, you are asking for division and asking for dysfunction and asking for brokenness and asking for conflict. And you're putting your wife in a very hard position because she's wanting to submit to your leadership. And quite frankly, your leadership isn't worth submitting to.
Yeah.
And so don't put your wife in that position by making decisions with your family, or hers for that matter, that you haven't talked about. And vice versa.
The same
wife.
goes for the wife.
Yeah.
Like, don't be going to your mom and making all these plans and then go back and be like, oh, by the way, babe, we're going to be with my family for this and this and this because we always do this and I don't want to let my mom down. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
No, it goes both ways.
You have to understand, if you do that, ladies, you're putting him in a terrible position. Either he makes a decision to offend you and your mom, or he submits to you and your mom's leadership.
No, not good.
That's a lose-lose.
Yeah.
And so when you put him in that position, you're setting him up to fail. And if you're in that position, husband, my encouragement to you is be gentle, be patient, be loving, be kind, and be firm. Babe,
it's got to change.
we got to figure out who's leading this household. I think God's called me to lead it, and he's called you to help me. When you make decisions like that, it feels like you're leading, either intentionally or unintentionally, undermining my authority, and I don't like how it makes me feel. Can you understand that? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
And then you're off and running. And if she's like, who cares, screw you, well, then you got a bigger problem. But either way, don't look past the symptom and just think it'll go away. If there's a symptom of an issue, chase it, because the root is probably, what's the word for a cancerous tumor? Malignant.
What? Metastasized?
No, like, yeah.
Or
It's
metastic?
yeah.
Metastatic.
Whoa, metastatic?
Well, if it metastasizes, that means it goes into the other parts
Yeah, like
of the
what I'm
body.
saying, like
don't
if
let it spread.
If there's a symptom there where the husband is feeling disrespected or the
Yes.
wife is feeling violated and run over, that may be symptomatic of something deeper, and that root could be connected to a malignant tumor.
There you go.
Like a cancerous tumor.
Yeah.
It's probably not benign. Oh, not that big a deal. No, it might be a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, if you follow the symptom to the root and it's just like a misunderstanding or a forgetfulness or I hadn't even thought of that, man, you can take care of that. But if it's, yeah, I know, and I don't care, you got to figure that out.
Yeah.
And so the holidays, I think, are a wonderful time to assess health.
Yes.
Marriage health, family health, alignment, unity, oneness. And if you find continued, regular, consistent conflict cropping up around the holidays, it may be a sign that there's something more significant to address. So don't skip over the symptom of dysfunctional, conflict-filled holidays to address something deeper in your marriage. Because when that gets addressed, all of a sudden the holidays aren't an issue anymore. So if you're listening and you're like, holidays are regularly challenging, well, okay, let's figure out why.
Yeah.
And like, let's set holidays aside for a minute. Let's set your quote unquote dysfunctional family aside for a minute. And let's look at maybe perhaps your dysfunctional relationship and figure out what's wrong there. Start there. I say that because I work with families sometimes who are having problems in their marriage or their children.
Yeah.
And they immediately move environmental. Well, it's their fault.
Everything
It's the
outside.
school's fault. It's the coach's fault. It's the football team's fault. It's my uncle's fault. It's the family's fault. And I want to go, nah, you sinned.
Right.
Right? You chose to put yourself in that environment. You chose to put yourself around those friends. You chose to respond in that way.
Right.
And so I when I'm working with someone one-on-one, I'm very slow to run to environmental reasons as a problem. Because like for you, like, this might be an overstatement, but there are very few environmental pressures, if any, that could disrupt us. Like we could go into any dysfunctional situation and we come out just fine because we're locked down here. We have agreements, we have unity. Now, it might it might challenge us. We might like take a torpedo shot
Yeah.
to the whatever, but we'd regroup. Whether it's health issues or demonic attack or crazy family members or wild friends or life circumstance situations,
Yeah.
when we get hit with that torpedo, we have a pre-commitment, a predetermined, there it is. Why do we do podcasts in the morning? That's such a dumb idea, man. Words are
for your
hard.
brain.
Yeah, it was a late night
Yeah.
and no sleep. Stupid smoke alarm. We have a predetermined commitment
Yeah.
to protect our unity no matter what. So if something tests that, then we come back and go, hey, are we good? If so, keep going. If we're not, then we got to figure out what that is. So if the holidays are continuing, if the holidays consistently bring up stuff in your guys' relationship, it may not be the holidays. If your dysfunctional family is regularly torpedoing, whatever, it may not be your quote unquote dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
It may be your dysfunctional marriage that you need to work on.
Start there.
Yeah, that's what I'd end with. Take personal responsibility and ownership for your life, your actions, your words, your marriage. Oftentimes the problem is in the mirror, not out there.
Oof.
Okay.
Good
we got
one.
like 6 questions left, but
We can circle back.
I need some breakfast. I love you.
I love you too.